if your competitors are not offering white glove style customer service, imagine how fast word of mouth would spread if you did something approaching that.
Those little things that you
Yeah.
think don't mean anything, but to the homeowner, they mean so much because they just want to be involved and understand what's actually going on.
Hey, how's it going? It's Tim Brown, and this is the Hook Better Leads podcast. And today I have Kasey Luft on from Contractor. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Tim, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing very good. Kasey has had the benefit of being on the backside of a bunch of roofing companies, and we're going to help you reverse engineer a perfect roofing customer experience. I'm going to talk from the homeowner's perspective, and Kasey's going to talk about like what he's seen really work well to help roofing companies build out systems, software, and automations to make their customer experience better. I mean, really, that's the goal. Talk to me about like a minute version of your background and what got you into this, though.
Yeah, minute version. All right, let's try.
Yeah.
So I originally have a physics background from university and realized I couldn't actually get a job unless I wanted to go further with my career in post education, and that wasn't happening. So I ended up teaching myself how to program, focused on data engineering. So I do have a data engineering background as well, and kind of came across different tools that were out there, CRMs that were out there, and just kind of fell in love with the data aspect of how data can empower businesses to be successful. And I just dove into that world. And I love the fact that I can help people set up systems, processes, automations that is absolutely going to transform their businesses. And really got into the roofing space and realized there's a lot of people in here that need some help, that's confusing as to all the tech that's out there. Technology is not being conveyed properly, and really kind of honed in on this area in construction in general to really help take businesses to the next level using automation, technology, and better processes.
All right. Well, talk to me about what's a lever that you feel like is probably one of the biggest levers roofing company owners can look at to start creating a better customer experience.
I think it all starts with sales at the end of the day. That's one of the easiest levers to be able to pull in change with or without technology. Really just kind of, treating the homeowner like you would want to be treated as a homeowner and
How
building
dare
out.
you?
Yeah, I know, right? Ultimately, just building a system and process for your team to get that 5-star review. So what does that look like on a customer level? When I'm interacting with someone, how would I want to be interacted with? How can I
Mm,
ensure that I'm meeting expectations? I'm doing what I say I'm doing. Some of the little stuff, just consistently and over and over again. If I can make it
mm.
consistent, then that's going to be the first lever that's going to get them in the door and shoot you ahead of your competition.
Yeah, something I brought my whole team one time to a really nice dinner at a place called Tenant in Minneapolis. A fantastic restaurant if you're ever in Minneapolis. It's basically like I was there a year and a half ago, and if I go in there tonight, I know that he'll know I want a Diet Coke.
Yeah,
That type of
100%.
place. And then they'd like literally make the raviolis like one by one and they're incredible. Basically, it's insane. So, but part of me was like, I'm like, take note, everyone, like what this crazy high end customer experience looks like. And it doesn't mean that we have to hit it perfectly every time, but as a service provider of any type, we should be always aiming for that higher level. Like if your competitors are not offering white glove style
Yeah,
customer service, imagine how fast word of mouth would spread if you did something approaching that.
100%. And at the end of the day, it's really not that hard to make sure you're meeting expectations and exceeding expectations. I think a lot of homeowners have a pretty low bar. They know, half of the people they call they aren't going to hear back from. All these things, all these tropes that have been online and all the different, social media that this has gotten, especially through obviously the COVID years and how crazy it was and just not getting a hold of any contractors. It's really not that hard to set yourself ahead of the competition.
Talk to me about like things that you can do with automation to increase customer experience around. Let's start there, like the initial
Yeah.
reach out.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how they come into your system, you can have different pieces of automation that are actually flowing through. So, for example, if someone comes to your website, they filled in, a very specific, hey, my roof is leaking, I need a repair. Great. Now you can shoot them down the repair funnel. If you have someone coming in due to, a hailstorm recently went through, you can start merging all of this information together on the back end to provide them the content and the context your team needs to be quicker, service them better, get better answers to questions sooner. And then you go down the road of being more personalized. So one of the big things with inspection, and I know this has kind of done the rounds in this industry, but I'll touch on it again, is that Uber style experience, right? If you can craft and know who's going to be coming to your home to do an inspection, what their best in like what their favorite things are, their hobbies, their interests, you've already made that personal connection before they've even been to the house. So I won't say Jake, but Jake is the one that came to mind. Jake is Allstate, so we'll leave that one for now. But if Jimmy comes to your house and Jimmy, he has two dogs, he's a family man, all this stuff about Jimmy, you're gonna have such an easier time as Jimmy, as the sales rep coming into the home and making that connection, doing the things you need to do, and asking the homeowner those questions that you need in order to build that rapport and obviously get the signed contract. So little things like that can make a huge difference on the sales end.
Absolutely. What is, before we got on this podcast, you were talking about vision and how vision is crucial to kind of reverse engineering this perfect roofing customer experience. And you're talking
Yeah.
about the 5-star journey. Tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah, so in for all the businesses that I've worked with, very few actually, when I ask them if they have documented processes, have have processes documented all the way through from start to finish. So from when a lead comes in all the way through that 5-star review. And so a lot of what we help our clients actually with is understanding how to craft that vision. And so what I tell people is if you can figure out what that 5-star customer journey is to get that 5-star review at the end of it, you can reverse engineer anything you want in your business as long as you can do it consistently. Some clients we work with, or in the past, I know a lot of businesses, oh, like my sales reps will do their own thing. Great, but if you don't have a system to sell, that's an issue, because you can't repeat it. It's going to be different for every single person. When it comes to production, if you don't know, when materials are going to get there, how they're going to get there, depends on each project. Scheduling becomes, a big pain, right? So all of these things end up adding frustration and hardship for the customer. And so they're not likely to give you a 5-star review. So if you go through that customer journey all the way through, identify from start to finish all the steps that the customer is going to be interacting with your team, who they're going to be interacting with, you can alleviate some of those pain points and make your systems more efficient. Or maybe you're going to find out that there's automation that could be implemented here because it's a big, bottleneck for your team. Maybe everything needs to be reviewed by, your sales manager before it can actually go out. Well, how can you make that process more efficient? How can you, tend to automate that? Or how can you get around any sort of bottlenecks in the business? And you don't really understand that until you have a process mapped out, until you have your systems mapped out. Then you can take a look at that and you can say, hey, okay, this is not working. In order to consistently get this 5-star review, we need, these touch points to go out. At this point, we're going to be letting the homeowner know that, materials are coming, that maybe they need to keep their vehicle off the driveway because it's going to be dropped on the driveway. Or maybe it's going to be dropped on the roof, directly. We should let them know that so they're aware of this. Those little things that
Yeah.
you don't mean anything, but to the homeowner, they mean so much because they just want to be involved and understand what's actually going on.
If you truly believe in what you're doing and you want to be the best version of yourself and you want to build a great organization, there's no other place to do that besides the Roofing Academy.
I was actually just going to touch on that because sometimes you're not just selling the amount of money they're going to have to give you. You're also selling the expectations being
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yep.
And to get a 5-star review, if we really want one, we're going to have to sell all of those expectations clearly.
Yeah.
Because, like, for instance, actually this morning, and I'm like dealing with this essentially our second salesperson, and she's new, and somebody was frustrated because they need to give us all the logins for us to do the work. And I get that, and I like, first of all, I have to have empathy for my customers.
Yep.
And they have actual real shit to do. They're selling, they're on roofs, they're managing people, they're managing a bunch of people. And also if we didn't talk enough about that,
Yeah.
it's so you have to move beyond just selling a financial number. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like, and so I told her, this is what I said. I said this line, and I'm being really transparent, but I said, this is what I say. I say, it's not only the amount of money that you're going to have to invest here, you're going to have to invest a bit of time to help us get a great result. And so that helps, it plays down the money a little bit.
Yeah.
It almost says, I know you got it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I know you've got this handled. You're not dismissing them as, you don't want to treat people like they don't have money. Stop selling like it's your wallet and act like they can do it. But then also, we're going to need your time. So in that case, I'm trying to teach my salesperson to sell more than she sold. She didn't sell enough.
Yeah.
She just sold the money requirement. She didn't sell the time requirement.
Yep.
And in our case, it's a business owner. And in our case, that business owner's time is extremely valuable. But I think if you treat your homeowner's time like it's valuable and actually like talk through the time commitments, then they will appreciate that. They will feel taken care of. And if you treat people's time like it's valuable, I don't think anyone's ever mad at that. And you
100%.
talk them through, what am I going to need to be at the install? Is it going to be noisy if I'm working from home, right? Like
100%.
I think it's a beautiful,
Yeah.
but they might not find that beautiful, and you kind of set a little bit of expectations.
Yeah.
The more you set expectations, I think the more confident somebody is in moving forward with you.
I love that. I think 100%. And it's the little things, right? Like, if you have a dog or two dogs, and running around the house, how can you, make the dogs' lives, if you need to keep the gate open, right? Like, oh my God, could you imagine if the dog got out? Like that would be the worst thing in the world. Or, kids are playing in the backyard and there's nails in the grass. Like that's like, it's a no-go, right? Like anytime any homeowner finds one nail on the grass, that's like 1 star gone. Every time they find another nail, it's another star gone.
Unless you say up front, we are going to do our absolute best. We're going to run the magnet 3 times after this, and we are going to pick up everything we possibly can. And we also use these state-of-the-art catch-alls or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Ding, sponsor. But there may be 1 or 2 nails at some point that crop up, and we need you to know that, because it's really almost completely impossible to stop there from being. So in that case, we need to settle that. It's a sign of a great salesperson and a great company that gives you all the drawbacks up front of doing the thing. Like, what consequences are we willing to accept? We're willing to accept being honest with somebody and they decide not to work with us.
100%.
And we have to teach them to be willing to accept some level of imperfection in the process, which is it's not going to be perfect. So I think a customer experience process can be much better when you tell them all the things that could go wrong without still assume they're going to do the deal. Don't be like, there might be a nail.
Yeah.
So you probably don't want to do it, right?
Please don't give me a bad review.
Of course, there's no way that we could possibly get rid of every single tiny nail ever, but we're going to do our absolute best, and these are the quality assurance things we have in place.
100%. And you have to do that. Even with my clients now, I'm saying you are going to be frustrated when working with me at some point in this process. But the
Yeah.
most important thing is that you communicate with me when this happens so we can address it as quick as possible. It's one of those things that it's just if you address it ahead of time, I think money kind of goes out the window because it's not like here's the amount and then you pause and then you wait for their response. It's like here's the amount, but also we're going to cover all these other things. And it's like, okay, the money part's gone. They're processing as you talk about all these other things. And
Yeah.
their mind is now moving on. It's about that salesmanship, I guess I want to say, of how you
Like,
convey the product and the service as a whole. Like you said, it's not just price. I love how you said that.
I love this tangent. So let's stay on it because I think it's probably useful to most people too, because most of us are selling and to some degree. And if we're not selling, we're selling to our employees.
Yeah.
And I like to, sorry, that would be an even further tangent. So I won't talk about that, the employee process, right? But the customer experience, if I'm fully communicated with, I am a much better customer. You
Yeah.
said something I love, and my account manager Vinny, who's brilliant and very good at communicating, and we were talking to a big prospect the other day, and he said the exact same thing that you said, essentially, like you're no matter what partner you choose this next year, you're gonna have a moment where there's like problems.
Yeah.
It really comes down, this is what he said, like basically like very close to this was like, it really comes down to how we deal with those problems when it happens. And in our case, this is how we'll deal with the problems. And then he went into a further explanation. And that could be a great line, I think, in a roofing process too. I mean, there will be problem. I mean, there's to the degree that there will be problems, really communicating that there may be this, there may be that. It
Yeah.
really comes down with how we deal with it, and we're going to make it right.
Yeah.
In our case, we say we're going to be very transparent about when there
Yeah.
is problems. In fact, we might even bring them to you and tell you something's not working.
Yeah.
So instead of covering them up like some marketing agencies do, we're going to actually show you what's not working based on our benchmarks, and we have internal benchmarks that generally like we'll be showing you it before you're mad at us. You know what I mean? Like that's our thing, is like there will be problems, but it's really comes down to how you deal with them. And I
100%.
think that like, man, I think that sales, and I try to make sales simple, right? Like it's a simple process. It's being nice to people. It's clearly communicating what it is. Like
Yeah.
that's the simple version, but the complex version is knowing what it is.
Yes.
Like,
And
cause
how
like,
it impacts them. I think that
yeah.
empathy, I think you said earlier, whether we were recording this or not, you talked about the empathy component. If you have
Mhm.
empathy and you can put yourself in the homeowner's shoes, that conversation gets so much easier.
Mm, that's great. And like, so you got knowing what that process will look like and knowing how to like get ahead of anything. Because you're not selling. I probably shared this story like multiple times, but it was our client Monarch Roofing, and they were training a sales guy in, and he was describing the way that they don't want him to just get the sale. The
Yeah.
sale is like, of course you're gonna get the sale. We're punching through the bag. You're talking about like a punching bag, right? And I'm not just punching the bag, because that's what they teach you to do, is punch through the bag. You're like
Yeah.
destroying the bag, right? Like you're
Yeah.
punching completely through it. And they're talking about with homeowners, it's like we're not just getting the sale, we're not just hitting it. We're punching through the bag, which is we're getting 5-star review
Yeah.
and 3 referrals.
Yeah.
Like, so the best salesperson I ever shadowed was Dan Walrick, who sold $18.5 million in 1 year. And everything that he did, there was almost like in his mind, from the way he looked at things, there was never, in that process, it looked like there was never a doubt that people were going to purchase as we were talking through. He was just guiding them to the correct solution, and he had so much trust, and he acted so trustworthy, including turning down business right there. And like, if it's not claim worthy,
Yeah. Not gonna
then
waste
we're
their
not going to file a claim, and making like preemptively getting trust with the homeowner in so many ways and acting in accordance with that, having integrity,
Yeah.
which is something that's lacking in the roofing industry sometimes. but having integrity. And the thing is that he's actually really creating this like expectation. So everything that he asked on the back end was like, "Hey, of course you'd like give us a review." And he's had his way of saying that, which is like, I get rewarded and they know I did a good job. And if you could leave this review, it'd be great. And he asked,
Yeah.
but he was presuming the close. And he's always got another thing that he wants to ask them, like, and this, and this.
Yeah.
And but he assumes that everyone's going to want to help him.
100%.
And then he's asking for the drink too, right? Like and also, could we get a drink? And also, he's actually like, he gets the person to just keep on giving to you. And he literally like, he had me close a deal. And he like went up to him before and he's like, by the way, I'm just training this guy in, but can you just sign it? Like, he's like, so I learned something from that, which is like this crazy confidence of like, when you have the knowledge of the products, when you know every objection. He's 25 years in. This is not something that's like, you don't get mastery in 3 years in roofing sales.
Yeah.
If you're at $3 million, you're still not master. Like, there's still ways to go. Like, a lot of people preemptively get a big ego. You still could sell 5. Okay.
100%.
And then it's like this experience, they're happy to give you everything that you could possibly ask for because you act like they're gonna be.
This is a subscription to knowledge, the most in-depth knowledge that you can find in our industry. We're spending the money to make sure that our production value is so high that you'll actually absorb the information and feel like you're getting something premium at the Building Experts Institute.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly, I just still don't even understand the magic. He's such a simple and super nice guy. There's nothing like manipulative in his body, but he exudes that confidence and that presumptive close on like everything he ever does.
I think it really comes down to, like building that relationship. Like, it's not awkward immediately. You have that thought of like, I know exactly what the homeowner is thinking right now. I know they need help and they need someone to help them. So I'm going to be the one to help them. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, oh, like, look, I know you're talking with 5 other people. You're going to have a wide range of prices that are probably going to come in, and you just like, if you take down their guard immediately with all those different things. And I love that he asked for these things because people also want to help, right? Like people in general, that one, they love to give their opinion, and 2, they want to help people. We want to help other people. That's why we're doing this, right? We are all doing this to help other people. And so if you can kind of reciprocate that in a way, it builds that relationship, that connection. And it just comes back to how important relationships are and how important it is for, your reps to build these relationships. I think there's a lot of technology out there that's, like an Amazon sale, right? Like that's a huge, like, let's replicate Amazon, sell a roof, online. Okay, that's great. But like, if I'm spending, as a homeowner myself, I'm about to spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on a new roof. I sort of want to talk with someone. It's a big purchase for a homeowner. Same with, insurance. It's slightly different, obviously, because they're not paying, but there's a component there where maybe just having like some touch points with a human connection for all this, you're going to be on my roof. That's a very personal thing. You might be in my roof. Who knows, right? Like it's a very personal thing that it requires a personal connection in order to really like leverage that fully. Not to say that the Amazon selling is there's no purpose to it. I think there's a lot of purpose to providing people upfront estimates and things like that. But there's also a lot of things that can go wrong with that process. So that's a whole separate topic. We could probably take a whole nother episode on if we wanted to.
Could you get into the follow-up process? Because I know a lot of the clients that you've worked with haven't had that in place. And like,
yeah, absolutely.
What is like appropriate amount of follow-ups? Are you like a go for no kind of guy, or what's your take on that?
I've worked with people that are go for no. Basically, if you do not hear a no, then it's a yes. And you're just going to continue to not hound them necessarily, but you might, respond, or maybe in the first week, you are sending out, emails, text messages, phone calls constantly, maybe even one of those per day. Then the next week you dial it back a bit, and then maybe it's every other day, then the third week. And then, by week 4, you're only following up with them once every week forever until that you hear, something from them. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think
And you use a mixture of automation and like process to have a person reach out, or what's your like ideal customer
Yeah.
experience on that?
Yeah, 100%. I would say, more upfront personal touch points right away, and then it
Yep.
slowly turns more into automation as you're progressing into that unlikely territory where they come back. But I think there's also a component that a lot of homeowners just are busy. Like realistically, like, we all have jobs. Like
Mm,
imagine your job and now being a homeowner and then trying to figure out, how to do all of this stuff
yes.
primarily outside of work hours, which is difficult to call someone. So like people are also just busy and
Mm,
forgetful. And like I just don't want to deal with this right now. I have two kids at home that are screaming, running around, trying to get dinner cooked, all this stuff. So making sure that you are following up with them is
yeah.
absolutely crucial. So making sure that you kind of build that in to the point that, it's not like a telemarketer, because as soon as you do that, it's a no. So you have to build it in such a way that it's not overwhelming.
I I love the way Grant Cardone said it's basically I'm not mad, I'm just busy. Like assume people are not like, oh, I don't want to hear from them because I've done that so many times. Like I've s- decided to reach out. I smile, I call. Like I do that. I do that
That's the
all.
tone, right?
I'm
Absolutely.
calling and I'm saying like, even though they sometimes they verbaled. They said it 2 weeks ago. They said yes, but they haven't signed. And I'll call and I'll smile and I'll be like, hey, I know you've probably been busy. I was just gonna see if we could get started on that project, and I want to make sure you get on the schedule. So the vibe. I feel like you're
100%.
speaking to the vibe of the reach out has to be expectant and positive,
Yeah.
and not act like people are mad at you. This deal is less important to them than it is to you, apparently. Like if
Yeah.
you're a little cranky on the reach out, and like, oh, I thought we were gonna do this,
Yeah.
like or like probably you're not gonna say it that way, but you might have a little bit of that tone. It's
Totally.
not a great customer experience,
No.
and the best brands in the world are not treating their like prospects. They're just happy to see you, and they're ready to
Yeah.
move forward when it's appropriate for you. Are there any like
Absolutely.
other great brands out there in the world or great customer experiences, maybe outside of roofing, that you think we should learn from? Kind of talked about the restaurant thing. I'm reading a book called
Yeah.
Unreasonable Hospitality, which is kind of about this topic
Someone
too.
recommended me that the other
Yeah,
day
it's pretty
to
good.
read.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's all restaurant stuff, but
Yeah.
there's all these little lessons in there
100%.
about like kind of empowering your people. And there's like, it's a really high end restaurant. Apparently, it's a vegan restaurant, so maybe I'm not gonna ever eat the food, but um,
No, that's a tricky one. I think there's a lot of businesses that honestly do well. I don't know if there's any that necessarily speak out to me, but it's
yeah.
the experience, like you said. Like I want
What about roofing companies? Like, what's a thing that you've seen a roofing company do that's like next level that we can learn from?
I think one of the biggest things that a roofing company can do that is next level is sharing who the rep who's going to be on site, a picture of the rep, maybe even a short video of them. They have their own landing page, each rep, and then as soon as someone is scheduled with that rep, they're going to get a text message. Like Jimmy's going to show up to your house Tuesday at 9 a.m. for an inspection. If you want to learn more about Jimmy, click this link and he has a quick video for you to share about him and his story and what his favorite hobbies, whatever it is, right? Like
You
I
can do
think
that
that
in
is
some of the
crazy.
major CRMs, right? Like AccuLynx, Job Nimbus. I know you've been on doing a lot of Zoho build outs, but is
Yes.
that something is that a fairly standard thing on some of these or no?
Unfortunately, not as much as I would like, and
Okay.
that's where a lot of technology in this space does kind of limit you. But there are ways to get around that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Do you mind sharing like what has been a way that you've gotten around that before?
Yeah, I think for example, like you can something like Zapier even. You could send
Yeah.
an email to a specific email address, scrape, some information out of that email and then trigger something via Zapier, an email to go out, to link to a text message, whatever phone system you're using,
Yeah.
anything like that. So you could use Zapier, you can use make.com is another one. These tools are becoming a little more commonplace, but there's still that technical aspect that someone has to make sure they understand how to use it as well to utilize it effectively.
And just to wrap this up, I know it's been a very somewhat quick podcast on a very complex, important subject. But what about the end experience of like after a job is completed? What have you seen as best practices to make a great customer experience after a job is completed?
I think one of the coolest things is to provide a gift for someone. Maybe during the whole sales process, you found out they like wine, or they're a big dog lover of doodles or whatever, anything like that. Right? I'm a big doodle lover. And so if someone were to like, give me a gift that relates back to something I'm interested in, that just means the world to me. It doesn't have to be much, something small, even just to know that you're thinking about them and that we appreciate that, you suffered through the arduous journey, right? Like make them the hero in that journey. And let them feel that reward at the end, like, oh, we love, that you have this new roof. It's going to protect you for years. And then you leave, business cards in there, referral cards, things like that. Just personalize that experience a little bit. It's one thing to just send them a card after with sales rep cards, QR codes, and all that stuff. But it's another whole new level when you just personalize that experience so much more. I love handwritten notes is another thing that a lot of people do. But again, that there's so many different things you can go in and try and A/B test and just try different things to see what works and what doesn't work.
Absolutely. I think just trying to see how we can elevate this experience for people without making it way too expensive,
Yeah.
And so I like cookies or branded cookies
Yes.
or brownies
100%.
or something like that. I think like you can do a local cookie shop or
Yeah.
something like that. Not a crazy big ask, but still warms up the process and makes them feel
Absolutely.
like you're not just about like the experience before the sale. So
100%. And those two things have to align. I know we're out of time here, but those things have to align. The sales process has to match the production process, which has to match the, after the asking for the invoice. All of these things, if there's a transition in there that isn't as smooth and those expectations are not being met or communicated, then there's going to be a drop off.
and we could all improve on this. So I think it's fun to set up the ideal and
Yeah.
to continually look at those that are doing excellent work on this front to reverse engineer
100%.
their customer experience. How did they do that? So it's holiday season, and maybe this will go into the new year here, but go out to dinner, like a really nice dinner, and kind of take a couple notes on what they're doing that's next level and what can we learn from that? How can we apply these principles from luxury experiences to our process, to our business?
Absolutely.
I think, nice hotels sometimes, you learn from that too. Like,
Yep.
yeah, I can't always stay at a nice hotel, but when I do, I literally take notes. I'm like thinking to myself, like, what? How does this apply? Actually, I said literally. I'm not actually literally taking notes. I'm using that word too much.
Literally.
Yes. But Kasey, where can people check you out? I know that you help people create a better customer experience for their roofing company through automation systems and software. Where can people check you out?
Yeah, you can check me out at my website, so www.clientric.co.
Can you spell that?
Yeah, clientric.co.
Okay.
And then we also have a YouTube channel, which has a lot of great content on it. So you can go and search Clientric on YouTube and you can find out everything about us and hear me speak about all these fun topics.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching. Podcast is put on by hookagency.com. Hook Agency all over social media. I think you know what we do, maybe, if you watch this whole thing, but it's SEO, PPC, and websites. We help people get more leads from Google. We're aggressive, custom, and transparent. All right, bye, guys. See ya.
Thanks so much, Tim.